Welcome to the Coven Chat.
Thank you for joining me here at the Maiden Circle Coven Chat podcast, where we talk all things witchy, spiritual, and human.
Hello, merry meet, and welcome. Thank you for joining us. In today's episode, we are talking about mirrors. I'd like to start today's episode with a reading of one of my own poems. And as I said before, I like to have a mixture of my own stuff and writings from other people so that I'm not just relying on other people's work. That said, I did write this poem when I was maybe around 17 or 18, 19 tops, and I am happy to say that a lot has changed since the writing of this poem in my life. But I chose it specifically and simply because it's called Mirror. It's one of the poems in my poetry collection, Voix de ma Cour, Songs of My Soul, a collection of poetry, which I published in 2017 or 2018. It actually has a follow-up called Shattered Mirror. And together they sort of display the ups and downs of my experience with bipolar disorder and my general emotional roller coaster through life. I'm only going to read Mirror, as Shattered Mirror is a bit long and I just don't feel like it. But if you're interested, I will link the book in the description. It's got poems from around the time I was 13 or 14 until a couple of years ago when I published it. Some are better than others, but you may find something that speaks to you within it. So again, that's linked below, and this is my poem called Mirror. She's not what you said. Your accusations and observations are incorrect. She's found herself, and will not be lost again. What you see is not reflective, not an image of her past. What she was is now alive. The empty corpse has risen. When she thought herself a shadow, she searched for life and love. Making empty, foolish connections, she lost all that she was. She was broken and insecure, dead in every way that counts. Now she's not what you've assumed. She's better than her past. She's truly found herself this time, and no matter what, will not be lost again. And as I've said, this poem is part of a collection, and in this particular part of the collection, I am dealing with my own mental health. Bipolar disorder is something I've dealt with since I was young, and I was diagnosed in high school. And so the poem that follows this sort of showcases that cycle that I was going through over the years, as well as other poems within the collection. Again, if you'd like to check it out, it is linked in the show notes. I just ask that you are kind in your critiques. So with that, let's move on to our fun fact of the day.
Pagan fun fact. Here's your fun facts now.
It wouldn't make sense to talk about mirrors and reflections without talking about one of the most famous stories about a reflection. We're heading back to Greece with the myth of Narcissus. There are a few slightly varying versions of the myth, and they're summarized pretty well by Cornell College, so I'll link the website in the description. According to Cornell, Narcissus is the son of a river god and a nymph named Liriope. He grew up to be very beautiful and everyone loved him, but he wasn't able to return that love. One day, as a young man, Narcissus was roaming the woods, and he was spotted by a nymph named Echo. Echo was said to be beautiful, but she was extremely chatty. She would talk so much that she'd annoy everyone around her. It was said that she always had to have the last word. According to J. Waterhouse, this trait came to bite Echo in the butt when she came across Hera, the goddess of marriage, family, and women. Hera was out looking for Zeus, who she was sure was messing around with the nymphs. Echo got in her way, allowing Zeus and the other nymphs to escape and not have to face consequences. So in her rage, Hera cursed Echo, saying, you will have the last word, but it'll only be the word that someone else said. And that's all you'll say. So by the time Echo came across Narcissus, she had been under this curse and could only repeat him. So whatever he would say, she would say, and they went back and forth like this, and she fell in love with him. He was shouting for his companions, and he said, "Come." And Echo answered the same. And the more he said to come, the closer she got to him. And then she ran towards him, expressing her love, and he shunned her. He did not return her feelings of love. Echo ran away, and she wasted. Her body and bones became part of the earth, became stones. But her voice remained in the air. Since Narcissus kept refusing love and everything and everyone who sent him love, the gods punished him to the same fate that he subjected these others to. You will not have the one you love. And then we get to the part that we all know. One day Narcissus comes across a pond. He sees water. He sees his own reflection in the water. And he falls in love. He tries to reach for the reflection and hold and embrace this person. But of course he can't. He can never have this love. But he never wishes to leave this love. He stays there, staring into his reflection, not eating, not sleeping, wasting away. The nymph Echo, whose body had become the earth, returns. She goes to watch him. She mourns. He says goodbye. She says goodbye. And then he dies. Echo and other nymphs bury him, prepared for the funeral. But when they turn around, there is no body, there is no grave. There is only a flower, the Narcissus flower. Another version of the story puts it that Narcissus wasn't in love with his reflection because he was in love with himself, but because he had had a twin sister who he had fallen in love with, and then she died, and the reflection was the only way he could see her face again. There's a lot more to this story. I encourage you to look deeper into it. One of my favorite books is sort of based on the Narcissus story, The Picture of Dorian Gray, where he sees an image of himself, and he is so enthralled by his own beauty that he wishes to never lose that beauty. And somehow that wish comes true, and the painting itself, the mirror of Dorian, the reflection of Dorian, becomes marred with every naughty thing he does, while the man himself remains as pure and beautiful as the day that image was created. It's not exactly the same, but I can see the similarities. Well, that's just something to think about. I hope you enjoyed this fun fact. Let's move on to this episode's musing. Magic mirror on the wall. Who's the fairest one of all? Most of us recognize this iconic line from Disney's Snow White, a fairy tale about jealousy and kindness and romance. It's a classic tale, Disney's first animated full-length feature, about a stepmother desperate to hold on to her youth and beauty, about a girl coming into her womanhood. The stepmother's envy leads her to dark places, and in a display of her vanity, she asks this question of her mirror, a magical mirror that can only speak the truth. And so for years this mirror spoke truthfully that she was the most beautiful woman in all their land. Then of course her stepdaughter comes along, and the mirror tells her a truth that doesn't make her happy. She is no longer the most beautiful in the land. Of course beauty is subjective. So what exactly does it mean for a vessel that can only speak the truth to say that one person is beautiful and another is not? I'm a big fan of fairy tales. I always have been. And one of my favorite things is reading or watching or just imagining the different ways fairy tales can be molded and interpreted while still maintaining their essence. And I've been thinking of different interpretations for Snow White, for what the mirror represents. Nowadays, when I think about Snow White, the first thing that comes to mind is Once Upon a Time, the live-action Disney adaptation of fairy tales. It's one of my favorite comfort shows. But there's always an image in my mind of Snow White in her blue and yellow dress, of the gorgeous and dramatic stepmother queen, and of course of the mirror with the eerie face. In this classic tale, the queen is alone when she asks her question. She's standing alone in front of the mirror, asking the mirror to show her who the most beautiful person in the world is, or at least in their land. And for years and years and years, she looked in the mirror, and the mirror said, "You're beautiful. You're the most beautiful. You're the hottest around." And then this new young woman shows up. This girl who, in that time, was reaching the age of courtship, reaching the age where young men would fawn after and fight to win her attention, just as they had probably done for the queen. So the queen sees this girl, sees all these people loving her the way they probably used to love her. And then she goes and asks the mirror again. She stands in front of it alone and says, "Mirror, who's the most beautiful person in this land?" And now the mirror says, "It's not you. It's that new girl. It's the one everyone is giving attention to the way you used to get attention." I've had the thought that this mirror, which only speaks the truth of what's in the heart of whoever is looking into it. The mirror showed the queen who she was, showed her the truth of her own thoughts. She no longer felt like the most beautiful in the land. She felt jealous. She felt replaced. She felt compared. And the mirror said, "Well, if that's how you feel about yourself, then it's the truth." We've all heard the phrase, cogito ergo sum, I think, therefore I am. It's the main line for René Descartes' philosophy. My favorite version of it is cogito ergo nam, which is a t-shirt that is accompanied with a picture of a cat eating. But this phrase has been thrown around my entire life. I think, therefore I am. When we look into a physical mirror, when we gaze upon an image of ourselves, a living, direct reflection, the things we think about are magnified and multiplied. When we look at ourselves and think thoughts of beauty, we are likely to see beauty. When we look at ourselves with hateful eyes, we're likely to see more things we hate. And how we see ourselves radiates out into how we see everything and everyone else. Just as the queen, seeing Snow White as the most desirable woman, meant that she no longer saw herself as the most desirable. And just as a quick side note, there should be no competition. We're all beautiful. But the queen was already looking at herself as the most beautiful. So when someone else came along getting attention that she desired, she was no longer the most beautiful in her own eyes. Just as the physical magic mirror told her, reflected to her, her own internal thoughts and feelings, so does the world outside of her. In different versions of the story, it's implied that the queen was beloved before Snow White, that not only did she see herself as beautiful, but so did everyone else. The world said she was the most beautiful in the land, and when she was chosen by a king with a daughter, the man with the most power in the land by fairy tale rules, this was the highest possible confirmation of her beauty. And then jealousy kicked in, and rage, and violent urges, and she became the evil queen. Her inability to see herself as the most beautiful in the land anymore, and her jealousy when she's decided that someone else is, causes her to destroy all the good faith she's ever had in people, to instill fear in people, to become known as ugly on the inside, regardless of what her physical appearance was. In almost every version of this story, the queen's jealousy and drive to destroy Snow White leads to her downfall. And all of it came from looking in the mirror. All of her decisions were based on that idea of looking in the mirror and seeing something in herself, seeing a truth that she did not like. There are actually a handful of stories and myths where a mirror or a reflective surface leads to someone's defeat. I can't help but wonder if that's why so many people seem to fear them or avoid them. It is true that mirrors are magical tools, but it seems counterintuitive to fear them, being as the essence of their magic is simply to show the truth of what is, to reflect what is. When you learn to look at yourself head on and look at the full truth of you, and love it and accept it and heal it where it needs to be healed, it becomes so much easier to look at the truth of the world around you, even the dark truths. It becomes easier to accept them when they must be accepted and change them, heal them when they must be healed. I thought I was going to come here and discuss how mirrors can be used for scrying and glamour work and maybe a return to sender consequences spell. But I'm going to have to do that another time. I guess it felt more important this time to talk about how reflections of ourselves can affect how we see and exist in the world. And my main suggestion for you is to look in the mirror a long time in a very specific way. For those of you who don't know, I have a couple of online courses on Udemy. I am adding them as I can. Right now, there are 4 available courses, and our second course, Getting to Know the Goddess, has within it a lesson all about looking in the mirror and reflecting on and loving yourself. You don't have to take the lesson to get this exercise. It's actually found in Patricia Telesco's A Charmed Life, on page 15, at least in my copy, and it's an activity called Embracing the God or Goddess Within. It's a brilliant exercise that you can come back to again and again. I've done it or different versions of it for the last 15 years, and I do think it can help change a person's entire outlook on themselves and on the world around them, for the better. So that's all I have to say this time. Thank you, as always, for listening. Let's move on to our divination. Today I felt called to use a deck that I haven't in a while, the Sacred Rebel Oracle. So I'll be using that for our main cards and clarifying with the Soul Healing Oracle, my own deck. We have number 17, What is Already With You. We have number 6, Shock of the New. We have number 38, Restore and Replenish. And on the bottom of the deck we have number 9, What Do You Feel? I'm going to go ahead and pull and place our clarifiers. We have number 26, Dark Night of the Soul, Loss, Heartache, Despair. We have number 46, Tip the Scales, Justice, Taking Control of a Situation, Legal Matters. We have number 54, The Sword, Manhood, Force, God-like Energy. And on the bottom of the deck we have number 17, The Soul Needs Music, a need for song, dance, and celebration. So the first thing I noticed was the Sacred Oracle card, What Do You Feel? When I was grabbing this deck, I was just doing a quick shuffle as I was coming over from my altar space, and a card fell out, and it fell out face up, standing against my tripod. And it was this card, What Do You Feel? And I took a minute and I looked at it before I started this reading, and I just sort of took it in and tried to think about my own feelings and what I was experiencing in the moments and hours before I sat down to do this reading. So that it's on the bottom of the deck now is very significant. This card is asking us to be deeply in touch with our spirit, with our heart, in order to make a decision. In this image we have a figure of a woman in black and white. She's holding in one hand a bright green apple, and in the other a bright orange. Apples and oranges. And above her she is looking at the world, which is also colorful. It's blue and green and white. She's not looking at the choices in her hands, the bright, colorful apple and orange, the options available to her. The way this is drawn, it's almost as if the lighting is coming from the planet itself. She's not in any color, so it seems that her light is coming from the world, but all she's getting is this white, gray light, while ignoring the vibrant colors in her hands. This card is a message to be in touch with your own truth and make your decisions, instead of allowing the world to color your decisions, or drain the color, as it were, in this example. Another thing I noticed was the overwhelming energy of the number 8, with 17, What is Already With You, that's 178, with Dark Night of the Soul, number 26, 8, The Soul Needs Music, also 17, 8, and then there's the 8 in Restore and Replenish, 38. 8 is the number of organization, of stability, of mirroring. When I think of 8, I kind of visualize 2 boxes. The way we draw an 8 can be symbolized with 2 squares, one on top of the other, or 2 circles, one on top of the other. Either way, they tend to be identical. It's an image mirrored on top of itself. So onto the actual card messages. We have What is Already With You. Something you've been seeking, looking for, trying to manifest is already yours. It's already in your hands. The Shock of the New. You're becoming aware of this because maybe you just weren't seeing that it was in your hands. I also noticed, just going back to the numbers, is this Dark Night of the Soul fell right on top of What is Already With You, and The Soul Needs Music is right beside it. So we have 888 in alignment. And 54 came out by number 9. So we have 9-9 in alignment. So we have this steady progression going from a dark place with Dark Night of the Soul to a big change with Tip the Scales, Justice. Again, it's justice, taking control of a situation, legal matters. So you took control of a situation after going through this heartache, this despair, and now you've become a god, you've become a force to be reckoned with. You took the time to restore, you took the time to heal. Now all you really need to do is decide for yourself what is for you. This is something to celebrate. You've been through something very heavy, and all the while you've been working to change it. You've been working to manifest and create something different. And now you're finally realizing that the seeds you planted, there was already a tree in there. It just needed time to show itself, but the tree exists. As soon as you have the idea, I like to say that as soon as I think something in a parallel universe, it's already happened. So whatever it is you've been working towards or trying to manifest, it's there with you already. It's already yours. For some of you, this is a creative thing. This is music. This is a song you've been trying to create. This is maybe an album you've wanted to put out. I'm seeing music because we have the Soul Needs Music, and the Shock of the New has speakers and piano keys all over it. There's also sunflowers, which represent the sun, which represent celebration, which represent joy. Her throat chakra is lit up, so some of you may be singers. This may be singing a song, singing your truth, creating something that someone told you you couldn't, or that you told yourself you couldn't for a long time, whether because of heartbreak or because someone said you weren't good enough, someone said you didn't have the skills or the talent, and so you believed it for a long time, and finally you realize that's not true. I do have this skill, I do have this power, I do have this talent, and so I'm choosing to pursue it. I've taken the time to hone it, and I've let, myself heal from that negativity, from that pain, from trauma, from darkness, whatever it is you've experienced. I've let myself heal through it. But I have that. I have what it takes to do this thing, to make this music, to put out this album, to create this painting, whatever it is. Again, we have the sword. So this is force. This is godlike energy. This is divinely guided energy. Whatever it is that you're trying to do, it's right for you. It's meant for you. There are just all these other voices saying, don't do that, don't go in that direction, don't take that action, don't make that choice. But those voices aren't what's going to nourish you. They aren't what's going to heal you. With Restore and Replenish, there's this image of a person in fetal position, surrounded by stones and shells and crystals and leaves and shiny buttons and coins, surrounded by abundance of both nature and of industry, of creation. Shiny metal buttons and shiny gems and shells. This is someone who has returned to a sort of womb, a nest. So for some of you, this is just nesting, getting comfortable and getting used to a new way of being, getting used to having the thing that you wanted for so long, that now is finally in your grasp, getting used to making your own decisions, getting used to listening to the music within you. I encourage you to engage with music this week in whatever ways you're called to. Just make it a part of your daily life for the next 7 days, even for just a few minutes, even if you listen to one song, one tune. And I'm so glad you've gotten out of this darkness, or that you're moving out of this darkness, and that you're healing. That's your message for this week. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember to check out that exercise in A Charmed Life by Patricia Telesco. It could change how you see yourself in such a magnificent way, and that could absolutely change your existence. So thank you again. I look forward to speaking with you in our next episode. Until then, I send you with all the love in the universe and 8 times the blessings. Bye now.